Hello, this is Erik Mell and Mario Eschenberg. Welcome to the Foreign Brewer Podcast. 1, 2, 3, eel.
See how that works. Did you prepare anything? I have just one topic written down on my thing. It's a big one, but
Yes, I don't.
then let me start with that one, and I'm pretty sure that's something we can talk a few hours through. Let me find it.
Hey, let's hit part one then.
Yeah, exactly. The headline is "How good is good enough?" Because yeah, I mean you know where this is going, but as a head brewer and not an owner, there's always a little, let's say, gap between this is good enough, this is not good enough, and you usually have to compromise. Not quality, like not in a sense of the beer's off, but like if you do a beer with fruit puree and you say I need 10 grams per liter or 100 grams per liter or something, and the boss says that's too expensive, like how good is good enough to make a beer still tasting good and you don't get what you want? Or is it mutual agreement that if you say this is the amount we need, that's what you get? Because I'm sure.
Oh, that's a great topic.
I think it is, and I'm struggling with that a lot because it's like we're emotionally invested in the beers, and it shouldn't be like that, but otherwise I couldn't do my job as good, I guess.
Yeah,
And so I'm
definitely.
getting personally attacked if I don't get the raw materials I want, but also I see it's a business, so you have a price point for a beer, and like if you buy raw materials, what's too expensive, and where do you draw the line to say this is not the beer anymore? I don't know if you have a fruit beer, for example, but there's like with fruit puree, it's obvious that the amount equals taste, kinda.
Yeah,
Like
clearly.
You have to have a certain amount of fruit puree in a gose, like a raspberry gose, to make it a raspberry gose. Like you can't go under a certain point, but also you can go much higher. Like let's say 100 kilo on 10 hecto. Like that's what I'm gonna do in 2 weeks. That's quite expensive.
Yeah, I mean, they say like 50 grams per liter with fruit is basically the beginning of being able to taste or recognize that it's that fruit. I mean, mostly you're at 300 grams a liter if you want to be like, that is definitely cherry. And of course,
Yes.
each fruit is different. Like that
yeah,
is
exactly different yields. Yes.
So if you use something like, I don't know, grapes, you need to use a lot.
Yeah.
If you want to use something like strawberry, you can almost forget the amount that you would need to use to make it taste like strawberry. I think I've had exactly one strawberry beer where I was like, oh, that is strawberry.
Yeah.
Mostly you don't get it. And then there's other things like cucumber, which you wouldn't expect to come through very strong.
Yeah, that's crazy. Like cucumber is crazy high yield to make it taste like something. So that's an easy one. And cucumbers are cheap, so. But
yeah,
raspberry
exactly. And you wouldn't think it, right? It's all water.
Nope. Yeah, it's 90%.
99.99% water.
Yeah.
But cucumber comes through well. Peach. I mean, just look historically at the types of fruit that were used all the time. Cherries, they come through well. Apricot, to a certain extent, comes through well, often in beers. Peach, same family. Like those ones, that's why you have them. And then everyone wants to do like whatever yuzu fruit and like strawberry and all the stuff.
Yeah,
I mean, look at history.
Insane. But like for example, like the raspberry yield was really shitty last summer. I don't know when you harvest raspberries, but I would say around summer, I guess. Like whatever.
August,
that is summer for me. So I'll pay around about 1,000 euros for 100 kilo of raspberries. So now I switch to 60 kilo raspberries and 40 kilo black currant to give it nice color and to make it a little cheaper. But that's like right now in my job I can spend that money. At my old job I couldn't. Like somebody would say this is too expensive. We have to be under a certain price point. We have to order less. What's the minimum order? Let's go with that. And then the beer doesn't turn out the way it should be, but you're responsible for the recipes. Like, where's the border, and how do you explain that to people? Like what to do?
Yeah, let's
Or is it normal that it's a
let
compromise in the end? I guess, right? So
sure. Let's back up because I don't even know how to tackle this topic. The first thing, the first thing that I do when someone's like, "Let's make something crazy," is I look at what is possible on my system. Like, what's the maximum range where I could actually get a beer out of this, and does that match the flavor that I want?
yeah,
For example, in our old or first production facility, the tap room here in Berlin at Bugabund, you know, if you wanted to use like 200 grams per liter fruit, you wouldn't have been able to fill the beer.
yeah,
Which
true.
means, which means there's certain fruits that I just couldn't have used. So if you, on the other hand, that's like if you're making a beer with 200 to 250 liters, it doesn't cost that much for
No,
you
then it doesn't
to
matter. And you didn't package; you had it all in
experiment.
house, right? So
Yeah, and you can go, you know, essentially you want your fruit or spice to be in similar amounts to the both the flavor contribution and cost per kilo of hops. Then you're
yeah,
in the clear, right?
yeah,
If people start talking about saffron
yeah. It's
and
impossible to get that flavor into a beer. And let's
yeah, I've had it before, and I asked like, where did you get this? Because like I taste the saffron, and that's
okay.
like I don't know, euro 50 per liter, just saffron edition.
Yeah,
And they had some special bead on it. It's okay.
I made a saffron beer, and I used like 2 grams on 10 hectoliters, and you couldn't taste it, but
Mm,
I could write on it's saffron, and I took a nice picture for social media. So
that's the next.
that's the next step.
That's the next thing I would. That's the next thing I would consider. First is what is the flavor contribution, and is it possible in my system? Next is what is the impact of this flavor contribution? As a brewer, that's super important to us. As you said, we put a
Yeah,
lot of ourselves into these beers. As a company and as a customer, the flavor contribution, there's a different relationship to flavor contribution. There's a lot of marketing, like you said. You have
true.
saffron on it. People are curious. Me, as a you know, as a very highly trained taster, let's say that I notice when it's like, oh, okay, well then where are the cocoa nibs here? Where's the barrel flavor in
Yeah,
this? Like where are we? Like I don't. Okay, it's barrel aged, but what what did it do to this beer that made it better than something that wasn't? Especially with my side company Schnieke, like we want to make sure that you can tell that there's some barrel that's happened
yeah,
here. Either
makes sense.
either the microbes, the oxygen, or the actual oak flavor
Or all
contribution to the
together,
beer,
but yeah,
or altogether.
that makes
So that's
sense.
the next thing I would do. And then it's always a question of is this a beer coming from what I want to do or my team wants to do as a, as brewers, or is this something that the company has dreamed up? I'm just going to give an example. All the CBD beers, all the hemp
Oh,
infused
fucking
beers,
hell, that was a thing.
that was a thing. It is a
Jesus.
thing
Yeah,
as these products become more legal. And my question is like, is this a marketing thing, or is this a flavor contribution? Let's just get
yeah,
that on the table right up
yeah,
front,
yeah.
and then we'll talk about making it and how much everything costs. And
Yeah, then I can shut my brain off if it's a marketing thing, which we did a couple times, making like funny videos and getting organic hemp and threw it in the beer. I mean, you could
mhm.
taste it, but it was not like the beer was not designed around it. Was not a flavor contribution. You would say this is like a hemp beer, but with fruits like
Yeah,
for like Sagovor Brewery, I made a beer for them once, and they had a shitload amount of raspberries in there. And it was one of the best raspberry goses I ever had. I don't know if they made any.
absolutely. I mean,
I don't know if they made any money of it. They had to ship it to Russia, I guess. Nah, it was for Europe, but like that was the best beer ever, and I always dreamt about making one of them. But maybe then you don't make any money of it, especially if it's a big brewery and you bottle it and you have to be in retail and competitive.
Yeah,
So
and that's the next thing. Like, as homebrewers, I have a homebrew background. I think you like jumped like feet first right in professionally.
yeah, I despise homebrewers. No,
And
I do not. But
let's but there's the reason that there's even a distinction here that we joke about as professional brewers. Me coming from a home brewer background, you not coming from one, is a home brewer. You don't have to sell that shit.
no,
Like you can put in as much saffron as you want, and you're out $20, and everyone enjoys it with their friends and says, "Well, how great that is."
yeah,
We're professional brewers. The difference is, you know, the equipment to some extent. There's a drain in the floor, even if you're small. There's a drain in the floor. There's taxes involved, and you have to sell the shit. Like there's the line.
yeah, sure,
And
it's a business, you know.
and there's more than one way to sell stuff. One way is that you make something double dipped chocolate ball coconut barrel aged sour breaded megalodon shark beer, whatever. Like, and
you were joking. It's
you
been
go
done before,
nuts.
for sure.
We joke, but if you go on Untapped, you can find
You
anything
can
you
check
said, I'm sure.
that in right now.
But there's and those beers are awesome. And sometimes I'm like, that's too much, and I make fun of it a bit or whatever. But sometimes I'm just like, wow, that opens my eyes. That's a flavor contribution that's insane. It must have been very hard, not just for the purchase of the ingredients, but for the
Ah,
brew team to actually technically make something like that. It's something that doesn't ever get considered when we talk about these projects. How hard it is to source stuff, use the ingredients, make that awesome beer the first and only time, and make it something that we know is going to be good. Be a bit conservative, but not too conservative that it just tastes like another beer. And then you have to sell it. But like I said, there's more than one way to sell this stuff, and one is you get known for that shit.
yeah,
Like
exactly. But
there's so
if
many
you,
breweries that are like, wow, they're like standard IPA is awesome or pills or whatever, but like
ah,
every once in a while, these brewers they really make this like something cool,
yeah, but
and
that was exactly where I was
that
leading with that
sells all the
question.
other beers.
That was exactly the thing. Like, if you want to be known for something, then you have to make the beer really good, like top 5 in that category in your country or whatever your competitor is. Then you have to be really, really good. But in order to be really good,
Yeah,
you also got to spend a lot of money and technique, and like then the beer is more expensive. Like that's a easy equation, I think, at least for the start.
yeah,
So then
and I
you
mean,
start something, and you want to be the best
mhm.
fruited goza out there. Then you have to pour in shitload of stuff, and then the question is, what is good? How good is good enough to be competitive, to be average, or to be the best? You know, where to where to start in the brew house, because you don't know where you're gonna end up originally, right?
Yeah, exactly, and
That's yeah,
yeah,
that's what I'm struggling.
so I think that everyone there's a lot of problem with who does what and who's in control of what, and lines are not clear, and there's miscommunication about how something's going to turn out and how it costs and what the
Yeah, well, that's a
impacts are.
good
A,
old craft beer.
a lot of
Low
it
hierarchy,
is,
flat hierarchy thinks everybody decides everything. Craft beer problem. I think every brewery has that. So that's
and I feel that in Europe we struggle with it a bit more because you have these ancient breweries. I mean, whatever.
yeah,
Most of them had a reboot at some point, but they have things like dialed in.
yeah.
They ordered
Things
the
figured
same
out.
hops. They try to,
You're
you
not
know,
gonna start a brewery and make the best pills in Germany. Like, you can try that, but that's gonna be a little tough one. Same with the Weizen. It's
ah, sure. But the reason for that's also marketing. Like technically, someone could hit it lucky, what they're doing, and they like win some awards and they make the best pills. It's not even that. To have it recognized as the best pills and actually make money because of that. That's
yeah.
another.
That's what
That's
I
the.
that's what I
That's
mean. Like,
that's
it's not the
impossible.
marketing part. And winning a medal, that's another topic. But is winning a medal, is that equals you make the best beer in that category, or do you just want a medal? That's some people don't even send their beers to competitions because people know.
They just know.
Yeah. Like every craft beer bar you go, you get a Schönrammer. I don't know if Schönrammer ever sent it in or if they got medals. I think they do. I think they do.
They did.
But there's
they won the best
some
bills.
other things you can compare it to where you just they don't send it there. Like Gutmann Weizen, I don't think they sent.
Yeah, Gutmann Weizen. That's exactly the one that popped in my head. It's like, wow, they're just good. Yeah. People know they're good.
Exactly.
If you don't know they're good, it's your loss. But they're really
exactly.
good.
Yeah. So that's
and their marketing topic. Is. I think that would be a great topic in the future. Just talk about brands that are good. If they're good and they know it, they clap their hands, and that's it. They don't.
And this whole medal,
they're just good, and people know about them.
This whole competition stuff, like the breweries I work for, they've been really cautious about like we want to win medals, we want to get out there as a marketing tool. And then this whole Corona thing hit, and all the assets were froze, and just like then everybody figured out we actually don't need that. Let's focus on retail and e-commerce and like make a beer available for everybody to buy. Fair enough. So that's how things change.
That's it. That's the. I mean, it's such a complex topic, but that's the thing. Like, if you want to market, the easiest way to do is on the internet. If you want people to talk about your stuff on the internet, you need to have something to talk about. Yeah. That's a different beer than your 25 pallets a month of Helles that you want to sell.
Yeah.
That's a different tool.
Yeah, it is.
But we're all small. We're all pretty new. We're all pretty young as companies. And, you look at like very successful companies in Germany, they're sort of like they have their niche, right? They're like hazies.
Yeah.
They're known for like one style of beer generally. Right?
Some of them. Yeah.
I mean, I just feel like, or even in Scandinavia, you have, let's say, Omnipolo. They put out really creative stuff all the time. Yeah. That's what they're known for.
Yeah, that's true. But I did some market research.
That's why people know them.
I did some market research in Denmark, at least, in how to position a brand, and it's everybody does everything. Like some people are known for making a good IPA, but basically they also do stouts and mixed fermentation and all over. Like everybody does everything, and then you're lucky or not to be known for something. That's, I guess, how it works.
Yeah, and I always said, like, if I was gonna start my own brewery, I would make a high volume, very affordable, very tasty standard beer, whether that be a Pils, Pale Ale, depends on where I open.
Yeah.
And then you would just like make that a lot, like especially in the spring, summer months, and then you switch to like the crazy award-winning stuff in the winter. Yeah. And that's it. You have a bifurcation. You have your high volume. You even joke around with it. You call it like morning stream or something where people know like this is an affordable, tasty beer and doesn't have any other pretenses.
I think that was the Brewdog approach.
Kind of, right. Yeah.
Like Punk IPA, it got a little tasteless over the last years. It was tastier 5 years ago, but whenever you go anywhere in the world, you go to a Brewdog bar, you get a good IPA. And that was a good time. Now it got a little watery, in my opinion, but that's another topic.
I honestly, Corona and family, I haven't been out in a long time.
Yeah, well,
that's another topic we should talk about. Like, when you go out, what is your most enjoyable experience? Like, where's your go-to?
When I go home again.
Just
take the cab home. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, I managed to go out once over Christmas break, and I was like, can we just go like one night? Let's just go where no one's gonna find us.
Yeah, just hide in a bodega somewhere.
No. Yeah.
If you go out less frequently, it's much more enjoyable though. Like now, I just go every second or third week, and then I go and have some drinks with some good friends, and then it's really fun. But the normal nightlife with all the youngsters in Denmark being open again and everybody's getting trashed, that's like, nope. Then I go home at 1 or something, and that's it. That's where the shit starts, right? I'm too old for that. We're too
Yeah,
old for that. I'm
we're too
and
old for this shit.
I enjoy much more to have a wake up on Sunday at 8 and have a coffee and a nice breakfast. That's more enjoyable than getting shit faced until 6 a.m. But
You and me both. It's been a long time. I enjoy that from time to time.
yeah,
And I'm a night person for sure, but my job demands that I'm not really a night person.
no, yeah,
That's another
unfortunately,
topic.
I love to do that.
How do you enjoy? How do you manage to enjoy the beers that you make? That's another awesome topic.
Yeah, that's responsible enjoyment, for example.
Yeah, also.
Ah,
But yeah, back to the topic at hand. Like I always said I'd bifurcate it. I would do like a simple beer, and then these really complex, crazy beers. I think
ah,
in today's environment, that's a very nice strategy. I don't have my own brewery. I have a small side project, Schnika, with my good friend Seba Pfister from Strassenbräu, and we're called Schnika, and we make our beers at other breweries, and we barrel age it, and that was our thing. Like we can't compete as a side project in another pale ale, high volume brewery environment. So let's make something really special and hopefully get recognized for that sort of
yeah. I think that's fair,
thing. And
and you guys know what you're doing
I
there,
think
so that helps as well.
yeah, exactly. And it's like we have our story and our trail of how we got there, and we know what we're doing,
And
and
nice,
so
nice
you got to
beer
do.
names contributed by friends too, so that's good.
Yeah, exactly. And
Exactly.
hopefully soon we're gonna have a Muffensausen.
Yeah,
That was
yeah,
stage fright for those of you that are not German speakers,
yeah.
and it's a
It
very
is.
funny word, and that was a contribution from Mario here, which is yeah, salted lime goza and tequila barrels. So
You
that should
better
be
send me
coming
some bottles north.
sometime. Oh, you'll get your bottles.
Oh,
You might even get a
I'll
key can.
pick it. I'll come pick it up.
Yeah.
But
So and even it, and that's just if you have a side product or even if your company like has a side like brand or label
yeah,
where the brewers can go nuts every 2 or 3 months. Or I've even thought of like a business idea that we basically offer at an expense to a company to send their brewmasters over for 2 weeks or
yeah,
a day, whatever, and we'll just make whatever you want to make. Like
yeah.
that's a business. Like it's like
I like that. I always wanted to do that, like a brewer's exchange program where you can send somebody somewhere for 2 weeks, and then the brewer from there comes over for 2 weeks, so everybody learns new
yeah,
techniques and stuff. That would be a nice idea.
yeah, exactly. And right now like we have capacity at Vagabond, and we're looking for collabs and I mean sure we have the Reinheitsgebot issue, which you can go around. No one knows that. It's another topic, but you can actually apply to put other stuff in your beer. It's just it takes a long time and there's a lot of planning,
Yeah, it is.
so it's not very
But
flexible.
but like the original question is like, do you have a budget for a beer? And then you say you gotta stay in that, or you're at a price point like we're gonna sell it for a pale ale price, so you can't be more expensive per liter than that, or do you
Yeah, and I
say,
just
do you make a recipe and say this is how it's gonna be, this is the price point, sell it for more, like you have to sell it for
exactly
that. Can you sell it or not? That's also like a
yeah, and I think and I feel like yeah, there's the profitability questions here, but if there was
that
a
is
brewery that offered such a thing, like this is also investing in your employees, and
sure.
because let's example brewery A has this program, and you can send your brewmaster, and they'll make whatever 20, 30 hectoliters of a crazy beer that would otherwise maybe not be crazy possible or profitable, but it's considered a training session or a benefit, a
Yeah,
perk for brewery B. So they pay, let's say, €1,000, something, whatever, to send their brewer to this place, creative brewery of some type, and that extra €1,000 helps cover the cost. The brewer or brewmaster like has their creative itch scratched. The beer becomes so much profitable because there's a training session going on, so they can put it on the books as that, and everyone walks away with like a collab beer, which is then packaged in the appropriate packaging and priced appropriately, so that it's expensive, but it's available. Now I haven't priced this out. Maybe it's a trashy, terrible idea. But we hear a lot of complaints like, okay, I'm working at this medium-sized brewery, but I don't really get to do what I want to do with the materials that I want to do
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
them.
I feel that
Yeah,
for sure. But that's a struggle, and I think that's a normal thing for. There's always going to be a little tension between a brewmaster or a brewer who's responsible, or like whose job it is to make the best possible beer, or at least that's how I see my job. Like everything I do is towards a good beer. Like I dry hop on a Sunday afternoon if I have to when the beer demands it. So I don't care. Like everything for the flavor in my possibility. And then there's the owner who says, "Yeah, well, I have to run a business and I got to pay you money. So you can brew this expensive beer, but then I can't pay you the salary you want." So I get the business point there. So it's always gonna be a compromise. You're always gonna sit down and do this, and then and usually, from my experience, you can find a compromise. Like you can make a beer good enough, and that sounds like it's a bad thing, but good enough to compete with other breweries, good enough to be on the shelf, good enough to be called like a mango passion fruit Weisse, even though you saved a little bit, or you bought like a puree, which might not be the highest standard, but you can get more from a cheaper manufacturer. And then that's the question: is it still good enough, or like are you as a brewer satisfied, or do you have to say, I wouldn't have done it better? Which is usually what I do. I always bitch and say I would have done it better if you would pay the extra €100. But
yeah, sure.
but that's a lifelong struggle brewers have until you're the owner and the brewer at once, and then you're probably having a conflict in your head. Or how is that with Schnieke? Like when you are the owner and the brewer, like then you have to compromise with yourself, or what? Or you say, this is what we do, stick with it. Like
Yeah,
that's.
I mean, we're still in the like early phases um, where the profitability of a small company, we're not living off the company, so we have some advantages where we don't have to watch it as closely.
But you say you want to go out plus
Um,
minus zero. Like that's how you price the beers. Like you say, this has
yeah,
cost
sure,
us,
of
this batch has
course,
cost us that much of money. That's how we
of
sell a
course.
liter, to at least not lose money. So you don't pay yourself
Yeah, exactly.
a salary, but
Yeah, but we don't want to like sell a beer for €15 and it costs €17 to make, label, and distribute. That's
no.
I mean, break even at least, or to cover costs, operating costs, and you know
Yeah, well, that's how you run a
raw material
company, right?
costs.
Like if you
Yeah,
can't do
of
that,
course.
then that's not a company in the sense of being a
It's not a
company,
company.
a business.
Exactly.
So
And during Corona, that's been a bit of a struggle. I mean, Sheik is not making as much as it should. There's been a lot of constraints on. I mean, a lot of time constraints because the selling, especially the restaurants, is a lot harder, which means it takes more time
yeah,
and supply chain and everything. Like there's like a lot of logistics constraints, raw material
and
constraints.
you don't
But
have
to answer
a
your question,
you don't have a
yep,
distributor.
no, we don't have a distributor.
No. Yeah, but these
Of
beers,
course not. No one's gonna take us on because we're a few barrels a year. This
yeah,
is like
yeah,
we can really focus on taking our time on the flavor. We don't have a contract that we have to fulfill in 3 months and just hope to God that the barrel
no, that's true. And you
is
don't know,
cooperating.
you don't know with these beers. That's like the charm of it. That you don't know, that you let nature decide a little bit. But on the other hand,
Exactly.
these beers are, you bottle them and then you do bottle fermentation or bottle conditioning, right?
No,
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 okay.
some are, but most
Anyway,
are
my
going into the bottle.
my point is that
Yeah.
these kind of beers qualify for long shelf life. So once you have them packaged, they're usually just getting better, and you're good. So
Exactly.
that's a good thing. You don't
On
have the time
purpose. I mean,
pressure.
on purpose, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. And I mean, that's why we said, okay, this is a place where we have expertise we can really steer the flavor where we want to. It's not super time sensitive like a hazy,
No.
and having them stay at the brewery where they're made for another couple of months in the packaging usually just makes them better.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. That's it.
or at least people that know the beer know that it's either better or they prefer something else, but it's at least like actively changing and not for the worst.
Yeah, I dig that kind of stuff, and that's a whole new topic for another time maybe. But these beers qualify also so well to be in a restaurant, to be like a high class, a shared bottle, like little
Sure.
wine snob sommelier stuff where people sell it. And the first thing comes in mind is Jan Kemker in Münsterland, where he sells to Nobelhart and Schmutzig, I think, one of the high class
Yeah.
restaurants in Berlin,
Yeah.
with his beers. He's doing that on a what you're doing, but just a much bigger level and really successful. So there's a niche. There's something for that. I like it.
Yeah, for sure.
I want to
I
see
think it's
more of that.
cool. Exactly, and that model we can pursue, but like a larger brewery, I mean, that's the second part of this. Like, when is it good enough?
Yeah,
Where's the line? That's very much volume dependent, right?
yeah. Well, also for mixed fermentation beers, it's like there's no standard really. Like right, so you just decide this is how the beer's supposed to be now. This is how I blend it.
Mm.
There is no like when a consumer in a supermarket buys a raspberry goza, like I said, and that then it tastes barely like raspberry, then I would be, as a normal consumer, like, what the fuck is this? Like, it needs
Mm-hmm.
to
Definitely.
be dark red, and there's still a line to what I think is the perfect beer and what the consumer thinks, but there's a certain standard.
Definitely.
Whereas for bottle condition, mixed fermentation, blended beers, Brettanomyces, like, who the fuck knows what happens? Like, you can always argue this is how we want the beer to be.
And unless it has tons of acetone, which I've had before, and
Yeah,
these beers.
maybe then,
There's like some off flavors where you can't argue it.
that's true.
There's some where you can argue it, like the Schnika Heyabubu. It has this like tart sort of red wine finish to it.
Yeah,
It doesn't. That's not a crowd pleaser. Some people love it. Some people certainly don't like it.
well, it is a tough one to drink, especially I remember when it was fresh. It was really like, oof, that's a tough one on the tongue.
Time.
And a year later, it got much more mellow, I think. But
exactly, and that's not a highly marketable beer in that sense. If you're a larger brewery and you're sitting on 5 pallets of that beer for over a year,
yeah,
your profitability of that beer is going down. If you're small, great, like longer the better.
yeah,
Right.
I have a question regarding to that. I don't know if that fits in,
Yeah.
but do you do one-offs, or are you gonna do it? Say we do a Hayabubu again and try to hit that flavor. I mean, it's probably impossible, but or is it one-offs?
It's a very good question. It's a very good question because we have another one in the barrel now.
Yeah.
It's very like basically same base recipe.
Yeah.
Different barrel, different yeast. So the question is, how do we designate that this is Heyabubu Vintage 2022?
Yeah.
Or do we just give it another name? Now, it's actually it's very on topic for this conversation because what kills us as a smaller company is the labeling.
Yeah.
Because labels are very expensive. For a small run of labels, you're looking at something like, I don't know, euro 30 a liter label,
what
which
the
is
fuck?
like
Really?
crazy expensive.
Like self-sticking?
Self-sticking because you don't have a machine to do it, hand labeled.
So front and back and the neck as well, right? You got something on the neck. Yeah.
No, just front and back. We don't have neck.
Okay.
But we have shrink wrap or caps. So you're looking at a bottle that we're selling for like 15 euros, and at least 3 or 4 euros of that is just packaging, caps, bottles, and labels.
Yeah, that's huge.
Labels, it's huge. And we can afford to do it because we're not paying ourselves. But if you really wanted to make a living off this, then you have to order more.
Yeah.
If you're ordering 10,000 labels, then you're talking about like,
or make the beer more expensive.
1 to 4 cents a label. like that's like totally doable, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So when we're talking about Hey Boo Boo, the next one's gonna be way more like vanilla chocolate brownie crowd pleaser. What you think of as a barrel aged stout? I think it started with 28 Plato.
Yeah.
So like that's an all rounder crowd pleasing, uh, dark beer. We're gonna leave it less time in the barrel because we noticed that the longer it's in the barrel, the more this sort of like crisp, red winey sort of barrel finish that comes out more the longer it's in the barrel, or at least it did in that barrel.
Yeah. Makes sense.
And so that one, actually, we didn't actually sell that one fresh. We kept it in the bottle for almost a year before we released it because it lost all of its like chocolatey aroma for some time fresh after filling, and that just came back after like 3 months in the bottle. We said it's too fresh, and then we aged it out in the bottle before we sold
It was a good
it.
idea, and still getting better, I
Yeah,
guess.
because yeah, exactly, because it was still a year ago was we thought acceptable, nuanced and whatever, but not definitely not terrible. But since then, it's gotten much more round. The flavors have really come together. And when we first put it in the bottle, we're like, no, we're not going to release this just yet. We're going to see how this develops in the bottle, which you have to do.
Yeah. So is the second batch gonna be better or same or completely different?
I think that's the thing. The second batch is going to be this like really sweet, big, round, classic imperial stout in a barrel.
Yeah.
With all of its coconut notes and stuff. So
maybe
if
that's
we name
the new
it Hey
version.
Boo Boo,
maybe that's the new version, and then from now on it is like that. And that's when you think about restaurants, and I think this is again a great beer to sell at restaurants, then or like special shops, special natural wine and beer shops, whatever. Wine has the same thing. You got a vintage, they change. So that's why you have fancy sommeliers at restaurants that figure out what to pair with what food.
Exactly. And so the question is for the labels, like, and for the marketing and for the reputation of that particular beer, so that customers know what they're going to expect. I mean, you mix that all up together, and then you make a decision. Is this Hey Boo Boo 2020? Is that what we, or 2022? Is that what we call it? Or do we say Hey Boo Boo 2? Or do we call it Boo Boo Heya? Or
whatever?
Do we just say this is a new creation?
Yeah,
and
that's a tricky one because you've got pro and cons on every side. Especially when you reintroduce a beer and you change it, then people might be like, "Oh, this is not the same beer anymore. Now I'm not gonna buy it." Or they say this is better, or like you confuse people.
Or they say
I
didn't.
You got the advantage that you're still new and fresh, and then you can fuck around with it before you set your standards. But once it's set and you not only make one barrel, but let's say you make 10 of that once a year, then it better stays the same because then people buy it because they want that certain flavor. So
or it has to stay in a range, right? Like, if 1 year, if 1 year it's something that doesn't, like, let's say like you make a beer that's very good, 80% of people like it, 10% of people love it, like rave about it, buy tons of it, buy it as presents for their friends, like, everything's awesome. And 10% are like, they could be better. I don't taste this. I don't really like this version. So if you have like that, that's one thing. But then if you design a beer that's more like 30% or 40% are like, that's very interesting, but I wouldn't buy another one. It's not bad. There's no off flavors, but I'm not really into it. And then the next year, you release this more normal curve, which is this 80% that like it, 10% love it, 10% maybe don't like it so much. They are not as likely, of course, to buy that same
beer again,
beer, because the 1 year in between, it was more something that they didn't love.
And how how nowadays goes, like when I sell beer, everybody tells me new, make new releases all the time. Like I remember
that's exactly
when Frisviercheck was starting up, they did a new beer every week, like a new release, and people were buying it, like.
Yeah, of course.
So put out new things.
And that's what That's what I'm thinking. But then there's of course the labels. Then it's a label redesign. That's $300. Then
Yeah,
there's renaming it, picking out the name. That's 2 weeks lost. Then there's the
yeah,
cost of the printing of the label, which you can't do like in advance. 10,000 label run. So
no,
it's all a little bit of a question. And we talked about quite a bit about Hey Boo Boo, but that goes for all of our beers. I mean, and everyone's beer in the industry. Like, do you make the same thing and slowly change recipe, or like try to keep it the same, or when do you do a new release, totally new beer recipe? And all of these considerations have to go in. It's not just the brewer like trying to source extra ingredients. It's also about the entire mechanism that goes into selling that beer.
yeah, yeah. That's I'm gonna write that down as another topic because I when I did the planning for the whole year, like a release plan, I have like 8 core range beers and then some specials. But now I figure out we should do like way more specials. Do you just package it differently? Do you just call it differently? Do you give it a little twist? Whatever. Like it's
Yeah,
like I'm for stability. Like I know if I can make the same pills the whole year, if I do the same pills the whole year round, I'm gonna be happy, and the beer's gonna be better. And that obviously is the most important thing. So we'll keep it at that and see you next time.